Good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Working Together series, live from the Netiv Zoom room out of Houston, Texas. We're just waiting on Rabbi Karmi Ingber to be ready to roll. We look forward to it. Oh, Rabbi Ingber's here. Well, let's just jump right in and say
Jump
hello
right
to the
in.
Rabbi.
Okay, how's everyone doing?
Recording in progress.
Doing really well, Rabbi. How are you feeling?
Thank God. Very good.
Good.
Very good. Big times right now. Big stuff going on.
I spoke to Rabbi Ari Wobi this morning,
Yeah.
said that you were talking about setting up a thing here coming up in the next couple of months, and he's very excited about it. So
Great, great. I'll talk to him. Yeah, we plan to come out to Houston. We'll do some stuff there. Hopefully, those in Texas will see you all. And God willing, I'll be in Houston, but I'll be a few other places also, God willing. So hopefully, we can connect and try to, teach Torah, meet each other live, which is good. I mean, the Zoom thing is great, but you can't substitute live. So
we also want to coordinate a time that Noahites can do a declaration that haven't done it yet.
I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And we're going to coordinate that. I think it's a great idea. We should do that. We'll make the court. We have enough rabbis there that will participate in that, and we'll do that. It'd be great. I think that's very, very important because there is a big difference, and
yes.
I encourage people to do it. I mean, there's different opinions in halacha, but it's worthwhile to actually make the declaration. According to the Rambam, there's a different status of the person, and you should do it. For sure.
David Donahue, who's in the group right now, I've asked him to kind of help me coordinate with you the local stuff, and he said he would volunteer to help.
Sure. Great.
To do that.
Great,
so whenever you're ready to put that in gear, just kind of let me know, and I'm going to put you in touch, and he can kind of help make phone calls, coordinate things that you need done.
Sure. Great. And if people are not too far, I mean, Texas is a big state. So, but if you are close to Houston, come out. And if you're not, tell me where you are, and maybe on the way to Houston, we could stop by and meet you guys where you are. All right. So we have a big stuff going on. We have Rosh Hashanah coming up. So we got to talk about this Rosh Hashanah, which is New Year's. Now, the Jewish celebration of New Year's seems quite different from the secular celebration of New Year's. In the secular world, you get drunk and you watch large things fall out of the sky. It's an apple in New York. It's a peach in Georgia. I don't know what it is, but it's sort of a drunken affair. And then people, the most spiritual component is you take on a New Year's resolution that maybe you keep until the 2nd of January, where afterwards that it's completely lost and it's gone. What is the Jewish New Year's and the world New Year's? The real New Year's is Rosh Hashanah, and it's called a Day of Judgment. Now, I want to define why it's called a Day of Judgment. I mean, really, it begs the question, what happened on Rosh Hashanah? Well, Adam and Eve, humanity, were created. The world itself was created 6 days before. I'm not going to the discussion of how 24 hours in time relative or millions of years, whatever it is, there's 6 units. Maybe one day we'll talk about time. Time is a very, very fascinating concept, what it is. But whatever that is, that's not the discussion right now. But on the 6th day, the 6th unit is when humanity is created, and that is Rosh Hashanah. So, why a Day of Judgment? Why not a birthday party? It doesn't have to be a drunken, stupid thing, but have a happy birthday. Yay, humanity was created. Why a Day of Judgment? What does one have to do with what does the creation of humanity have to do with a day that we should be judged on? Why? And we need to understand this because really, as I said to you once before, there are three major times of judgment for every human being. One is after they die. After a person dies, all of their deeds are weighed and they are judged. And there are spiritual worlds and there are processes that a person goes through based on what they've done in their life. We've said the other one is the day of judgment called the Yom Adin Gadol, the day of great judgment, when all of history as we know it changes, meaning that the world is moving towards a purpose. It's not arbitrary. It's not, and therefore it's not that the world ends, but the world history will change. They'll come to a point where the world moves to a time of clarity, and it moves out of the stage of this confused reality. We move into higher levels of consciousness, which are part of the process of the world to come. Which is ushered in by the times of the Messiah, which is not the world to come, but that is the ushering in of this new level. And at a certain point there, we arrive to the end of history, as we know. It's called the Day of Great Judgment, discussed in the book of Daniel and all the writings of the sages. And then everyone is judged also. And that's really the final judgment in history. And then there is the yearly judgment of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so it's very, very heavy. And I don't understand. I understand when a person dies, that kind of makes sense because they lived their lives and how they do. I understand the time of end of history because then we're going to see how we all did in the whole sum total. And I explained to you once, because things that you put in motion do not necessarily come fulfilled until the end of time. If you do something, you help somebody right now, you will see the results of the reward for many, many generations, because things you put into motion might happen now. You have children, you train your children properly, you help someone else, and they become a righteous person because of your actions. So you start to gain, even after a person leaves this world, they gain spiritually, so their judgment is not done until all of history is complete. But why Rosh Hashanah? Why on the day of the happy birthday of humanity are we judged? Good, fair question. So let's explain. The purpose of creation, as we've said many, many, many times, is that God wants us to take our free will and to build ourselves and thereby develop our connection with Him, which is called the reward that we get. Now, of course, people might think, oh, I want a different reward. I want, candy. But that's ridiculous, because there's a lot of different ways and pleasures in the world, but those things in the physical world are very, very low level. The greatest pleasure a person can ever experience is the experience of the infinite, of the transcendental, experiencing God, which we don't have words, but when you talk about goodness, a love, these are another names in its root for Hashem, for God. So everything that is good, everything is a source of existence, you experience by experiencing God. That's why, as I've said many times, it's very funny how, some religions describe, they go into great detail about the world to come. Famous story of a Arab a terrorist who went to blow someplace up in Israel, and it didn't work. And thank God it didn't go off, and he got wounded, but didn't break out, and no one else got hurt. And he almost died, and they actually took him to the hospital. And this terrorist then was, he was handcuffed to the bed. He was unconscious. And then he woke up, and the Shin Bet, the Mossad, the CIA, whatever you want to call it in Israel, was all around the bed waiting for this guy to get up. And when he gets up, he says, okay, send in the virgins. And they go, what? Send in the virgins. He believed that idea of the world to come in the Muslim faith has to do with when they go, if they are righteous and they do these martyrdom acts of terrorism, they get a world of 70 virgins. So the CIA member, the Mossad person, says, "Listen, buddy, you ain't in heaven. You're closer to hell right now." So what happened was that but what was my point? The point is that the concept of the world to come in this person's mind is very physical, because the more you try to describe the pleasure of eternity in physical terms, the less you understand it. You make it physical. Can't. And that's why the Torah doesn't go through great descriptions. There's many reasons why, but one of the reasons the Torah doesn't go through great descriptions of the world to come is because whatever you're going to say, you're going to make it less, because you're going to then trap it into a physical thing. It's infinitely beyond, as the Mishnah says, 1 second of chorus ruach, of pleasure, of contentment in the world to come is greater than all the pleasures in this world, from the beginning of time to the end of time, of every single person put together. 1 split second of eternity, because it's a different realm. So God wants to give us this experience, but you cannot get the experience of this pleasure if you don't do something to make it yours. This is one of the most fundamental tenets of the creation of the world. So if I go, and I see this example a million times, if I go and I take someone and I say, Nancy, can I use you as a volunteer for my story, Nancy? Yeah. Okay. If I said that, I always say this to them times, if I said to Nancy, okay, we go, and I said, Nancy, you won $10 billion. She'd say yes. Now, there you go. Sorry, it's only a story. You're not getting it, so don't worry. Not for me, at least. But so we go and give Nancy $10 billion. Now, what happens? Now, of course, Nancy's everyone's best friend. Everyone loves Nancy. They have little Nancy dolls, Nancy posters. Yay! Everyone. So then one day they want to honor her for just being Nancy. The big hall and thousands of people. They say, "Ladies and gentlemen, your favorite person of mine, Nancy." She comes up to the stage. You feel really great. But then me, the person that gave you all of this money, all of this greatness, walks in the back room, and I start waving, "Hey, remember me?" What happens to your feeling of feeling great? Feels blows up. It's finished. Why? Because at that moment you realize you didn't do it. It was given to you and you didn't make it. So the greatest pleasure is going to come when we earn this experience of connecting to God. Now, how do you do that? Well, very simple. You're in a world where there is good and bad pulling you every direction. When you choose good and you choose spiritual and you choose right and moral, you are acting godlike. And therefore, you can now experience God more because you are going in his ways. You are emulating him. In the spiritual world, the only way you can experience something is by being similar to it. Just like when people meet, I always say that when you meet someone, the first thing you do is you play, geography. Like, where you from? Where you from, Rod? Well, I'm from Houston, Texas. You're from Houston, Texas. Do you know my friend George? And you're like, no, I don't. Houston, Texas is a giant place. But you're trying to build commonality. And that commonality is because you want to feel connected. You have something in common. You want to experience Hashem. You have 120 years in this world to act God-like, because you're in a world that pulls you in both directions and you choose how you want to act. And therefore, the purpose of this world is to be in this maze, to choose to live morally, properly, righteously, emulating God, And then you start to, in this life, also start to get the appreciation for goodness, because it's like wine. The person doesn't know how to drink wine. When they first drink the wine, like, oh, it's terrible. But if you develop a taste for it, you appreciate good wine. You develop righteousness. You have a sense for goodness. You help someone. You feel good. Right? You feel you connect to the things that people don't experience, because you have a content life, because you are tuned into it. And that experience of developing a sensitivity towards godliness is a certain level in this life, but it's infinitely times more after this life, because then a person now has developed that, and that's called the reward of eternity. And people need to understand it, because people make a big mistake. They think we have the ideas of reward and punishment kind of messed up in our heads. We look at it very, very shallow. It's like, yes, you were a good boy. Here's a candy. And every good parent knows when they need to punish their child, you should always punish your child in a way that's connected to the act that the child did. Right? Okay, whatever you did, you were I'll give you an example. One time with one of my kids was always late for carpool. And what was the best punishment was the time I said, okay, I know what's happening. This happens every day. Let's leave at 7 a.m. and at 7, 1 minute to 7, you start making the food and this and that, and then you come out 7:05, and your siblings are upset because they're going to be late to school. So you just know tomorrow at 7 o'clock exactly, I'm leaving. So the kid wants a test. So what happens? The kid came out at 7:01 or 7, even maybe less. But at 7 o'clock exactly, I was gone. and then my daughter calls me up, where are you? Like, well, I said I was leaving. The kid was never late again, because the punishment was clearly related to the act. There's the same thing with the punishment and the reward. Listen to this, guys, because this is amazing what I'm trying to explain here. The punishment is when a person distances themselves from God. The punishment is the distance from God, because that's all that's what goodness is. So now you're in a world of pain and disconnect. When a person connects to God, then afterwards that's the pleasure. I'll give you an example. Let's say this is one of the I'm going to tell you something. This is a little bit out there, a little bit on the mystical realm, but it's important to know coming to Rosh Hashanah. But there's different kinds of things that happen to a person after they die. There's different spiritual possibilities they can go through. There's one negative consequence that could happen to a person, and it's called Kafka Keller. This is what it is. What it is? I'll give you an example. Imagine a person spends their whole life, and all they want to do is eat. They don't want to. All they do is, and people pay them. They become, I think, restaurant critics. It's like that's your life. Your life is just, eating food all day. So all they do is that's all they care about. They don't care about anything else. Eat. Now, what happens? They created the consciousness in their lives that everything is about my mouth pleasure of eating. When they die, they take that consciousness with them. Here comes the problem. They die, their consciousness wants to go get a hamburger, but they know they have no mouth. And that's not good. That means they've developed a life, they developed a consciousness that is so far away from righteousness that they're stuck in that feeling, but that's not reality. The things that are real are goodness, kindness, morality. Those are the connection. Those are the expressions of God in this world. And when you do those acts, you actually will be able to receive those things. And a person does the opposite, then they get stuck, because when they leave this world, all of the illusions of this world, all of the so-called pleasures that are not really eternal, are goodness, they're gone. So if a person hasn't built something and chosen properly, what are they taking with them after they leave this world? So the purpose of this world was to give us this good, this connection to God, this experience in this world, to build ourselves, build the world, be able to experience godliness. God wanted to give it to us out of his loving kindness to us. So he created the world. He didn't need anything. So it therefore requires us to actually do those things ourselves to be able to receive it, because we built it. That's going to be the greater experience. All right, Nancy, when you make, if I instead of giving you $10 billion, I gave you, $1,000, and you turned it to $10 billion, you gave me back the $1,000, said thank you for the loan, I made this, you'll have a very different feeling because you did it. It's yours. So that is why God wanted to create the world in the state of judgment, that a person needs to earn it. Again, I've said it many, many times, but in some of the religions, they make a grave mistake with this. They make a grave mistake because they say, it doesn't matter. God doesn't matter. It doesn't care. Yeah, God doesn't need my actions, but I need them. He wants me to develop myself, that I did it, and not to stay as a pauper who's just taking and has nothing. Now, let's go back to my original question. So why is Rosh Hashanah the day of judgment? Just because humanity was created? It's a happy birthday. It's not why it's the day of judgment. I'll tell you why. Because if you start a business and you have a purpose, and I say, let's say, I don't know, I'm starting a business, and my goal is, I don't know, the first year we're going to make, I don't know, $50,000, whatever. So when I start it, when I have a goal and I start a starting point, when a cycle completes and I come back to the starting point, back to the beginning of it, I have to do an assessment. Every business does an assessment. Are we on the right path to what we are trying to accomplish? So since humanity is created on Rosh Hashanah, so God says, okay, we're going through a cycle. The year is like a circle, or more correctly, like a spiral. It's moving towards a goal. When we come back to that moment in time, since the first creation of mankind was to earn and to act in a way that was going to have them earn their connection to God, when we come to the end of that cycle, we have to assess, well, how have we done during this cycle? What tools, and if I had a business, I would say, well, what do I want for the next year? Do you need a bigger budget, less of a budget? So when we come back to the day of our creation, God says, I gave you tools during the year. I gave you this, I gave you that, whatever it is, everyone's got their tools. Family, friends, money, well, whatever you got, challenges, everything is the tools you had for the year. How did you do? Now, based on that, the decision will be made, well, what tools, what resources, what budget do you need for the next year? Do you get more life? What do you get? That's why Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment, because we're returning to the purpose of our birthday, why we're created. We're created to earn our connection. And now there requires an assessment. Well, have you? And watch how amazing this is. If the answer is yes, then a person gets blown in his life another year of life. We take it for granted, and we shouldn't. We take it for granted. What happens is that every year Rosh Hashanah is being judged. And therefore, the judgment is, did you use your tools? And how did you do? And what should you get for the coming year? But we all, we have to realize that every time God gives us life, that is a gift. He's giving it to us, God willing. And so therefore, Rosh Hashanah is that return to that same point, right? The Hebrew word Shana, the Hebrew word Shana, I don't know what year means in English. I mean, I know what the word means, but I don't know the root of it. The word Shana in Hebrew is l'shanot, to repeat. It's a cycle. Shana is l'shanot, to repeat. Shnayim, 2. The word Shana is the numerical value 355, which is how many days there are in the lunar cycle. 354, 355, we count the day itself. That's how many days there are in the lunar cycle. That's called a Shana. And then we have the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which brings me to 365, which lines up the solar and the lunar calendar, because that makes it that the 10 days in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is a separate reality. The lunar cycle is a year, but the full year now, those 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is a time you could change everything. Because if a person did not do well, that's a time to do tshuva. That's time to return, to fix it up. But before Shana also, we got to fix it up. So this is what's happening. Every creation, every person, every entity is judged on Rosh Hashanah. Everyone. Everyone comes in front of God and he looks at every single individual and says, this is who you are. This is what I gave you. This is what you, how have you done? And therefore, it has a frightening component to it. It has a frightening component because it is a day of judgment. And therefore, it behooves us to really try right now to fix ourselves as much as possible. Try to be as good as we can. Try to fix up. Think about, like how you act towards other people. Do acts of kindness. It's like people, it's so funny. People are like they think that I don't know. It's a weird thing. And a lot of times everyone feels that they're very nice. But I'm going to say, well, what kindness have you done today? And sometimes people are really stuck. What kindness have you done this week? It's not about like, oh, I don't, hurt people. Yeah, of course. But like, that's not a kind person does kind acts. Abraham was always looking for kindness. All right. If you look at the Hebrew letters and the Aleph Bet, I can't show you now because I don't have it on a chart. But there's the Aleph, and there's the Bet, and then there's the Gimel Daled. I'll try to do it in my hands, try to make a little. This is a Gimel. This is a Gimel. Okay. It's a Gimel. It's got like a little head here and it has like a foot. And that's a Gimel. Now, the next letter, I feel like I'm doing a football cheer here. The next letter is a Dalet. A Dalet is like a line. It's like an XY axis. The word Gimel, which is the letter Gimel, is also the word Gomel. Gomel means to give. That's the Gimel. And then the next letter is called a Daled. The Daled is the word Dal, means a poor person. And so the two letters are in conjunction because the giver, the Gomel giver, wants to give to the poor person. But it says the poor person is embarrassed, so he turns away. It's why his head is facing this way. In Hebrew, we go from right to left. So the Gimel wants to give. He wants to give, but the poor person's embarrassed. That's why the laws of charity is you should give it in a way that's not known, not to embarrass the person who is receiving and not to feel haughty. And that's why one of the higher levels, in a certain sense, the highest level of charity is when you don't know you're giving to, and they don't know who you don't know who you're giving to, and they don't know who's giving to them. So there's no embarrassment, there's no haughtiness. This is a high level of a loan because then he's really earning themselves. But the thing about the Gimel, I showed you my little picture. It says his leg. This is his leg. His leg is always running to the Dalet because it's not about waiting for it to happen. It's like the way of a giver is they look to give. Abraham was upset when he had his circumcision and there was nobody coming around that he could host. It bothered. He wasn't like, oh, good. Woo, nobody here. Okay, I got the day off. That's not what he said. He said, I want to give. So let's start, as we're getting to the Rosh Hashanah, to try to work on becoming more godlike, doing kindness, making sure we're speaking properly. All the good things that we want to fix ourselves up before the day of judgment. And prayer, obviously, because the quality of realizing you're standing in front of God and you're being judged is a very serious thing. And so therefore it behooves us to prepare for Rosh Hashanah in its seriousness and to be very optimistic at the same time, but really to realize it's a day of judgment. And to make sure that we are lining up what our goals are. We're taking stock of how we've acted during the year, and we are committed to go and to really try to be righteous, to be judged as the righteous people of the world. And therefore, prayer also, talking to God, asking, begging really is all quite appropriate. And I think so that is it's my thought. I'll take some questions on it, but this is really that's what's happening right now. We're coming back to the starting point of creation, and it's back to the point of the purpose of life. So you got to ask yourself, okay, what have I done? How have I acted this year? How could I do better? What could I tilt the scales, that the scales of judgment should go in my favor? And that's the power of this day. And it's not just a birthday, it's a revisiting of the purpose of humanity. Purpose of humanity was that people should be the pinnacle of creation, elevate themselves in the entire world, and thereby connect to God and get that good reward of the experience that they're creating. And therefore now we got to ask, are we doing it? And prepare ourselves for the day of judgment, and the day of judgment to come before God, and everyone is going to be judged, and ask and beg for positive judgment, because you're bringing out what you really are about, what you really want to do. All right, those are my thoughts. I'm opening up to questions, ideas, comments. Hope I didn't freak anybody out. Got a lot of quiet. Oh, I was like, David, please.
Thanks, Rabbi. I have a quick question for you. Me and my older boys were invited to a Houston Sephardi synagogue for most of the High Holy Days, except for the Yom Kippur night. So for like Rosh Hashanah, what would be the best way for us to enjoy that day with them? We've established a relationship with this synagogue over the past 6 months, and we've gone maybe once a month.
Rabbi Masri, which was the Rabbi Masri synagogue?
I'm sorry,
Rabbi Masri. What's the name of the rabbi? Rabbi Masri?
Yacovian.
Oh, send him my warmest regards.
I will.
We're very, very, very close to Yacovian.
I just want to. We've been invited, and I didn't want to push myself on them, but he's very warmly welcomed us for almost all of the high days coming up. So I just want to know how to like comport ourselves, like what when they're doing the prayers from the Siddur. What is it best if I just stand in agreement with them instead of trying to read from the Siddur with them because of some of the language in there, or what's?
You're gonna get yourself an English Hebrew Siddur. They probably have them there. I think he has a lot of Israelis that are, but he probably has an English. You can get an English. You can get it on an art scroll English Hebrew it's called a Machzor, which is the type of Siddur for Rosh Hashanah, and you get one. You say the prayers with them.
Okay.
You say the prayers with them. Why not?
You know, David.
the prayers of Rosh Hashanah are very fascinating because you really see what I said to you before about how everything's moving towards the goal, because Rosh Hashanah prayers are all about the entire world. The entire world says, Yatushchem echad avdecha. Everyone should turn themselves to serve God. And so there really is a very global feeling of where the world's going. So I think that I'm sure Rabbi Kobe invited you over. He knows what he's doing. And he what you're going to do is you'll get you have a sitter. I don't know if they have. You could ask them if they have English, an extra one. They might, but a lot of places do. Most places in America do carry for everyone that comes a sitter. And you'll see when they stand up, when they sit down, and you just do it also. You should wear a kippah when you go in because you're going to be in a synagogue. So even though you don't have to, we don't have to, but at that point when you're in the synagogues, that would be probably appropriate as a way to interact. And you can say the prayers with them, and listen to them, and they'll speak, and you'll hear the shofar and other things that they're doing on this day.
Hey, David, I'd like to say Rabbi Kolbian is a very straightforward individual, and if he invited you, he's not kidding. He doesn't just openly invite people to that shul, and so he's a beautiful human being, and hopefully I can make it there as well. So
come on.
I really am.
I'll put a good word in for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, please, and definitely send my regards. I'm very, very close with him, and I already told him we're planning to come out to speak at his synagogue when I get there.
Awesome. Rabbi, you realize that all the people that's converted from the Netiv has gone through him in the Beis Din.
There, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Isn't that great?
Listen, I know Rabbi Kobe for many, many years. When I first did my rabbinic first training program, he was one of my first students in my program, and he's a bit younger than me, so he was a little bit shy in those days. He was obviously brilliant and amazing at the time. A little bit shy, but he's really.
I can't even imagine him shy.
I know. I can't imagine it either. Yeah. It's very
about
funny.
Transformation, right?
I know.
And he has breath from his lungs for days.
Yeah.
We've been a handful of times, and that guy.
Yeah, it's very funny because I remember him as a 20-something-year-old student. So as he was starting out. So he's developed wonderfully, and I love him. So send him my close regards.
That's
why I say Houston. Houston's like a place for me because I have a lot of my students from my training. Rabbi went to Houston. I got a lot, and now Rabbi Cohen, who was in Houston, who's back now in Atlanta,
in Israel.
In Israel, right? In Israel, I mean, so he was also my program, but he was actually one of my best friends. Him and I were in yeshiva together. When we were 20.
Wow,
we were like best friends, and now we started a new learning center in Israel together. We started a kollel, together in Israel. So we're very happy to be back together.
So really, you're so part of us. Why haven't you moved back here and just helped us just kick the Netiv Torah Noahide thing up to the next level? We need you here.
Well, I'll tell you. Look, I was, when I moved to the States, I was doing this this rabbinic training program. I had Rabbi Kobe in there. I had a lot of people in the program, and I did it for many years. And then I decided, okay, I need to go myself because I can help people more in America. So I put 17 years into America. I think, I don't want to say I paid my dues, but I did that. Now I got to come back to Israel. All my kids live in Israel. They're all back.
Oh, no, I see that.
What I did was, like I say, I kept my house in Atlanta, and that's why my plan is to go back and forth. So hopefully I can do that, and that's why Texas is my next stop.
Well, great. We're so glad that you're an incredible influence and teacher for our community. And I know there's a lot of other things that you could be doing, but you join us here. Here it is, almost going on midnight there in Israel. And what a mitzvah that you do. Stephen has something he wants to say.
Yes, kind of along the same lines. So, are there any parts of like Yom Kippur that we should kind of stay away from in terms of like the Yom Kippur service? Just out of curiosity, because I know we talked about Rosh Hashanah today, but I didn't want to kind of jump.
I don't, as far as let's say, praying, you could pray. I mean, do you need to fast? You don't need to fast. Can you fast? I don't think it's forbidden to fast. I don't think it'd be forbidden. But I don't think you certainly don't need to. But if a person feels, and by the way, even on Rosh Hashanah, this is a very strange topic. And Rosh Hashanah is a very hard day to understand it, because there were people that used to fast. And we learned in the book of Ezra together that, with Ezra Nehemiah, that he said, it was on Rosh Hashanah, he says, go and celebrate. So the Jewish people, there were those that fasted, and the law is that they're allowed to. That's what they did. But the custom is essentially not to do that. The Jews don't do that. And I think but it's allowed to do because of the Day of Judgment. And so I think that, as far as like, what you're doing, especially, Rosh Hashanah, which is very, very universal in the sense that everyone is going to be judged. And Yom Kippur also, because the way it comes out, according to most of the sages, is that people are judged on Rosh Hashanah, but their seal of their judgment is on Yom Kippur. So this is relevant for everyone. Now, again, you're not obligated. The mitzvot of the day are obligated for the shofar. You're not obligated to fast, and these things are. But to be tuned into the day, and to talk to God, and to pray, and to work on your traits, that's something I think is very important for every human being to do. And it's a strange thing. It's a strange thing that and I tell you the truth, I was looking at, because there's really not so much, because it's so incredible how the years ago, I don't know what happened in the first temple time, where the nations of the world knew that the Torah was true. They knew King Solomon was the king that God installed in the world to bring this to the world. And they had a certain relationship towards the temple and towards Israel. But for many, many years, that has not been the case. And we have a new phenomenon. Really, it's not new, because it always was from the time of Noah. A Noachide means a Ben Noah, a descendant of Noah. But so it's very old. But the fact that people want to know, want to do, that is somewhat hasn't happened in many, many years. So you don't really see. I try to look up in the literature, about people, non-Jews, who want to keep Rosh Hashanah, and there's not much stuff, because people weren't doing it. But you are, I guess, one of the lucky ones, because what's happening. So a person doesn't know what's happening, and it's the Day of Judgment. He says, "Hey, say I think I'm going to get drunk and act like an idiot." Well, you might be in a lot of trouble.
So far, it's my favorite Jewish holiday, the high holidays. It's the one that for some reason, I understand the best.
Yeah, because it really is.
Repentance.
In that sense, it's more universal, in the sense that the other holidays are have more a specifically Jewish component of our Rosh Hashanah. Is everyone is judged. So everyone, this is relevant for everyone in a full way. It's just that to be someone who's not born Jewish and who has been disconnected and doesn't even know they're being judged, that's rough.
Yeah, see, my dad's family's Jewish, but they're secular Jewish, and Hanukkah was the only holiday they celebrated.
Right.
Rabbi, thank God for Islam and Christianity, where most of the world population at least has an idea of some level of contrition toward a God that judges. So that's a beautiful thing. I just wish that we could get this liberating message that comes from Judaism, that even in this Torah portion this week expresses the global concept that everyone is to benefit from the knowledge and wisdom of Hashem. So,
Right.
yeah.
And by the way, Rod, I imagine you're familiar with that. The Rambam, Maimonides writes that. I mean, there's two different texts because the question, but he writes that. He says that what's going to happen. He says it by Muhammad. There's a question if he said it by JC or not, if it was edited, he did say or not, but he says that he's going to pave the way for the true Messiah, because what happened is that you have to realize that when the Jews came out and said there's one God, people said, the Romans laughed at them. Where's your God? You have only one, and you can't see him. So the concepts, even the concept of Mashiach, that has been promulgated in the world. So concepts of that's why the world, and that's why you have to see it that way. And I do see it that way. I feel that even though the world is in the craziest place now than maybe ever, but at the same time, there is a movement that still happens that is pushing towards the ultimate rectification. And that's why we can have this conversation, because I couldn't imagine having this conversation with you all, 40 years ago. I just couldn't imagine it, because really, who a person was a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm not going to talk to a Jew, and everyone was in their own world. And now all of a sudden, there's a world of people saying, "Wait a minute."
There you go.
I want to hear and moving away from. It's very hard to leave the dogma that people have been told. It's very hard. You all know that.
Yeah.
You all know that, and that's why I can't. I don't know. I'm not. Only Hashem is people's judge. I'm not anyone's judge. I don't know. But a person, I know it's right, but I can't go into tell you what people's heads and how, what's their responsibility and not. But I do know that a person that is told something and they're stuck in their heads and they can't get out of it. Yeah, it's somewhat it's a responsibility, but it's also very hard. So it's very, very impressive that people are moving out of that and moving towards thinking freely. Cheyenne, you have a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Rabbi. So I have possibly like a two-part question. The first part is on the Jewish side. You have Rosh Hashanah, but then you see only the Tzaddikim are judged on Rosh Hashanah. And then there's the 10 days before it's like essentially sealed. Is there anything like that on the B'nai Noah side? As the first part of the question. And then my second part would be, like, what about the person who's was a B'nai Noah and then is like under a Bet Din now and is kind of in between, like not being fully Jewish and not being like, you're still a Noahide, but you're in the process to be a Jew. How would you be judged during that time with the Noahide at that point or on the Jewish side? And that's it. Thank you.
Good. All right. So a couple things. First of all, the judgment has many components, and there's a few statements. The statement that the righteous people are judged on Rosh Hashanah, and the evil people are judged on Rosh Hashanah, and only the in-between people are hanging in the balance. So that statement is generally understood to be going on the judgment of the world to come, meaning that for this, according to many of the sages, for the aspect of how your life will be in the coming year, that for everyone is going to be during the 10 days. Now, let me explain this a little bit because it's a little complicated. It's a very complicated topic because not everybody that sometimes we see righteous people that do die in the year and evil people that do live. So it can't mean that a person who's righteous will necessarily be guaranteed a year of life. A person who's righteous will be guaranteed that they are going to, on this Rosh Hashanah, their spiritual world is good. And therefore that would mean that a righteous person is judged on Rosh Hashanah, that their spiritual world. But again, since they can be judged before they die, so what does it help? And the answer is like this, because, and this is an answer to the first question, but it's also touched on the second question. The depth of the judgment is way, way out of our bounds at all. So when Hashem looks and says, okay, this person is righteous right now on Rosh Hashanah, they are completely righteous for their world to come component. But what they're going to get during the year is also going to be affected by what their judgment is for their world to come. So, for example, let's say somebody is a bad guy. Let's say he's just a bad guy. So, therefore, that's going to impact his judgment for during the year. Because let's say everyone has to be rewarded for the good things they do. If a person is a terrible person and doesn't even get the world to come, because they're so bad, their judgment might be they get all the goodies this year. The guy driving around in his Corvette, don't get too excited because, he has everything. You don't know what's going on. He's getting it all now. That's not good. So the judgment for the year is going to be affected by the spiritual component, but there's so many factors that God says, okay, if I give him more life, I give him, because we don't know what's good. In other words, we know what's good in terms of truth and Torah, but I don't know if a person's going to become famous. I don't know. Everyone probably saw the guy. What's the guy's name? Anthony Oliver. And he became this famous guy with the song. The guy turned down $8 million music contract. That was pretty fascinating because, however, I didn't hear him speak or anything. But the idea that a person says, "Oh, I became famous this year," that could be the worst thing for you. So what God's giving is the person is going to be calculated to who they are, what they need. And that really is the second part of your question. So if a person is not Jewish yet, so their judge is not being Jewish. But at the same time, God's calculation is infinite. So when the person he knows is in the process of that, so that also is going to go into the calculation because that's what he's doing. So it's not like, we can't know the depth of the depth of the judgment is impossible. It's impossible because it goes by your kids, your great grandparents, who your soul is, everything, every single thing. And it really is the judgment that is and this is the part that people don't fully, we hear it, but we don't really believe it. The point of judgment is for goodness. That's the point of it. God. Now, again, if somebody says I'm a terrible person, and God keeps warning the person, pushing them, and the person's a terrible person, okay, so they may get their currency, their payoff, what they want. They want the payoff in this world, so they may get it. But God is always judging, trying to bring out the goodness in the person. So we can't exactly comment on the details of it. The general idea is the judgment where you are spiritually. That's what the first part you quoted. Most commentators understand that the 10 days are now going to affect how that's going to play out in your year. Are you going to get this or that? Because we know you're righteous. So if I give you more, will that be good for you or bad for you? Will that help you? Will that challenge you? There's so many. And then a person who's in a process and has decided to do something, and decide to do a spiritual act, that also counts. So even a person who hasn't converted will be in the category of a Noachide. But when you decide to even do anything good, and you made a decision, so that obviously is a factor that is going to go into the judgment for sure. All right, good.
Sandy?
And Sandy, you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. I was listening earlier this afternoon to a podcast on Rosh Hashanah, and he presented an idea that I had not heard before. And since it was a podcast, there was no opportunity to ask questions after. So you're the lucky one that gets the question.
Okay.
He presented the idea that not only just is every person judged on Rosh Hashanah, but the world and the universe is judged, and Hashem will decide if it will continue for another year. And he said, if you look on a calendar where normally it will say, this is Rosh Chodesh, because we're moving from one month to another. If you look on the Jewish calendar, and I just did look on the one I have, it does not say Rosh Chodesh. And he says, because it might not be a new month. And I've never heard that idea presented before. Just like your thoughts on that.
So it is correct that everything and everyone is judged, meaning not just people, everything in the world. Will there be rain? Will there be war? Will there be all the things are judged? This is a very complicated topic, by the way, because what does that mean? So the guy is judged. You were a good boy, a good girl before Rosh Hashanah. You got a good judgment. And now, okay, it's over. I can do whatever I want to do. It doesn't work that way. So a person can undo the judgment of Rosh Hashanah because a person is also judged on a daily basis. But the judgment of Rosh Hashanah is the spiritual snapshot of where we are right now. And without things changing, this is the formula for the world, where the world is at right now. So that means the rain, the crops, the economy, all these things are all judged. That part is, I agree with this, correct. The Rosh Chodesh is not, Rosh Hashanah is not called Rosh Chodesh. There's different reasons why it's not called Rosh Chodesh. One is, even though we bless the new month every before the new month, we don't do this on Rosh Hashanah because it's a mystical thing, because it's a day of judgment, and it's a hidden day. It's the only Jewish holiday where the moon is hidden. So we have certain things that we sort of do more discreetly. But to say that the world is not going to be here, maybe or not, I don't really understand how we could say that, because there's a plan to the world. So yes, of course, there is a process, but until the world comes to there's a process. It's not like God is like, okay, there's no world. And you could tell somebody who's concerned about global warming that you tell them that also. Don't worry. I guarantee you, Mashiach will be here before the ice caps melt and wash us all away. I guarantee you. We only got maximum 200 years. Don't worry, the world has already been destroyed already 10 years ago, according to Al Gore and everybody else. Now, again, I'm not a proponent of let's pollute the world, of course, but the hysteria is hysteria because it's not happening. There's a plan. God runs the world. Let's stop polluting the world. Let's start with stop polluting our food and everything else that we do, because the world is not being destroyed in the next couple of years that you have to go. And so to say the world is judged, the whole world is judged, but to say the whole world's might not be here, I don't know where the rabbi is saying that from. I think it's an idea he wants to say. I don't think he's wrong, because he could be saying the idea that theoretically it's a judgment for the whole world. That's true. But at the same time, I just want to make it clear that because the world has a process, so we know that the world has to come to its fulfillment of its process. And we're still there. We're still in that process. Okay, Dan, you had a question. Sure, my pleasure, Sandy. We got two more, and I got to get to sleep. We say slichot. We get up very early and
Yeah, we
have
so
to,
appreciate you staying up late there in Israel. We know you're in Israel. But I've got two questions on
Please.
Facebook, Rabbi. When you were sharing with David about going to the synagogue there in Houston, Fred Rawls is concerned about many Noahide groups are persuading to not participate in Jewish festivals. And the concern, I don't know what his concern is. He was texting me also. I tried to be clear that a sign can't be hidden against the background. It's got to be clearly seen. And yeah, have you got any comments on clear comments for him on Noahides and celebrating of the holidays? And then I have a question after that from Naomi Rachel.
If I understand Fred's concern, he's right. There is a concern. I mean, because what we can't have is a situation where it's not clear who's who and what's what. There is that. So Noahides keeping holidays that are meant that are Jewish holidays. Or various commandments like tefillin and tzitzis and these things is not appropriate. They're signs that are signs for Jewish people. That's not appropriate. But I think what David was referring to was a rabbi, who is a scholar and a righteous person, has whatever his relationship with David is. He invited him. So that's fine, and the celebration, like is going to go to the synagogue and observe there. If a Noachide is going, I would not encourage. Perhaps the Noachides go to a synagogue, and the rabbi invites them. Why not? To have the Noachides create a congregation to imitate the service with the shofar, that would be inappropriate. To have them get together and talk about and learn about Rosh Hashanah and try to that, I don't think is improper, because especially because of Rosh Hashanah is why I said it. It's different than a holiday like Passover, because Rosh Hashanah is a holiday that Noachides are being judged. And so a person knows they're being judged. You can do what you want, but I would tell you, if I know I'm being judged, I kind of want to be prepared. I want to do something. So I think Fred's right in being careful about crossing the lines and blurring the lines. At the same time, being Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment, and that's why I was very careful what I talked about in terms of that. It's prayer. It's which is okay. When non-Jews should pray, and non-Jews should be judged. They should be righteous. So those things I think are all totally fine.
Oh, excellent, Rabbi. A question from Naomi Rachel. She says, Rabbi, can you talk a bit more about the different levels of teshuvah from awe or from fear? She says, not sure if it's relevant to this class, but it is. I recall you mentioning like 3 levels.
Yeah, I got to do it briefly because it's a separate class. Maybe we could do that to get closer to Yom Kippur. But basic levels are tshuva from fear has a couple levels itself. The low level is a person afraid, but even a high level of fear is not the word fear. Fear has a connotation, but the higher level of tshuva from a place of cognition, that I realized I was wrong. So that's a great level of tshuva. It's like a person realizing that, that I was acting like a fool. I was drunk. So that means that now you're conscious, and before you weren't conscious. So it changes your the way you're looked at in your past. That's tshuva, either out of fear or out of consciousness and clarity. There's a high level of tshuva of love. We've talked about it in different contexts, which is that a person really wants to do what's right. If you have a relationship with somebody and you can just see this in your own relationships. You have this with somebody, you hurt them, you can apologize and really make it up because you feel that you did a bad thing, you really it was foolish. Or you can do another level, which is I love the person so much, I feel so terrible I did it, I want to fix the relationship, and that motivation is love, which is a higher level of tshuva. And the longer discussion, Naomi, we'll leave. We're gonna see Naomi hopefully soon here in Israel. We'll definitely have that conversation when I see you here next week, Lily. We have one more question. Dan, you had another question? Was that it?
I think David had one more question.
I was going to tell you, Rabbi Yagobian told me to give you his kind regards.
Okay.
Texting going on right now, so.
Great. All right, wonderful. All right, so next Sunday night
is Rosh Hashanah, right? You'll still be in Rosh Hashanah.
Wait, next Sunday night. We have Friday night, Saturday. No, it won't be. But let me. I'll send a message out. I got to look at the calendar. So it's the night before the fast day. It'll be
some rabbis are putting things on hold till like October 8th.
It's right. Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, it'll be Sunday night here. I'm gonna not do it next week. It's gonna be after Rosh Hashanah. Right after Rosh Hashanah here, so we'll see Rosh Hashanah there. So I'm not.
And then after that, you've got Yom Kippur Eve on the Sunday.
Yeah, I'll message you, Dan and Rod. We'll try to make some more time. Maybe we'll even do a Sukkot party together or something like that. Maybe I'll zoom in and we'll do some Sukkot music and stuff like that.
Rabbi, how did your concert go last week?
Oh, the concert was a lot of fun. It was great.
Fantastic.
It was great. And the new album is coming along very nicely. So we're having a lot of fun there. And we wrote some new songs, and it's coming along. And hopefully we'll be able to share with you guys some of that soon. I'll send you a clip from the concert, Rod, and and Dan, you could share it. I'll try to send you a clip.
I'd love to do that. That'd be great.
Excellent, sure. I'd be glad to share it.
Yeah, send the whole thing if you can. I don't know if you can or not.
I probably can, but you'll have to cut it up because it's
kind
of long.
I can do that. Yeah.
All right, I'll send it over to you.
Fantastic. Till
Thank you
next
so much.
time.
Thank you so much.
Shalom,
have
guys.
such a
Thank
wonderful
you.
time there in the Holy Land, Rabbi, for
Thank
sure.
you so much. I'll see you guys later. Okay.
All right, folks. So it sounds like that will be our working together meeting for today. Sounds like Rabbi's in the air. We probably no broadcast with the Working Together series next week. Possibly the week after. He's going to let me know. And so I will advertise on Facebook all over the place if and when we go live. Make sure that people know in advance. So until then, have a wonderful, wonderful week. And Rosh Hashanah is coming.